July 1st, 2002, 2135 UTC, southern Germany, near Lake Constance. Two aircraft are on a collision course at 35,000 feet. Both crews know something is wrong. Both aircraft have a system specifically designed for this moment, a system that has calculated the collision, identified the solution, and is telling each crew exactly what to do. One crew follows the machine. One crew follows the human. 71 people are killed. The machine was right.
On the night of July 1st, 2002, two aircraft were crossing southern Germany at nearly the same altitude, on paths that would intersect over the German town of Überlingen, near the Swiss border. The first was Bashkirian Airlines Flight 2937, a Tupolev Tu-154M passenger jet, departed Moscow Domodedovo at 1848 UTC, bound for Barcelona. On board, 60 passengers and 9 crew members, 69 people in total. Among the passengers were 52 children from the city of Ufa, Russia, traveling to Spain on a school trip organized by their local UNESCO committee. The second was DHL International Flight 611, a Boeing 757-200 cargo jet operated by 2 pilots, originated in Bahrain with an intermediate stop in Bergamo, Italy, now flying to Brussels, Belgium. Both aircraft were at flight level 360, 36,000 feet. Both were under the control of SkyGuide, the Swiss air traffic control organization responsible for the sector. Both were operating normally.
The air traffic controller on duty that night was Peter Nielsen, a 34-year-old experienced controller working alone at his station in Zurich. He was covering 2 positions simultaneously. His colleague had briefly stepped away. The main radar system was undergoing maintenance and had been replaced by a slower backup system. The short-term conflict alert, a ground-based warning that would have flagged the approaching conflict automatically, was not functioning on Nielsen's display. It was flashing at a control center in Karlsruhe, Germany. Controllers there made 11 attempts to telephone Zurich. No one answered. At 2130 UTC, Nielsen first noticed the 2 aircraft on his screen. Their paths would cross in approximately 5 minutes.
To understand what happened next, you need to understand TCAS, the Traffic Collision Avoidance System. TCAS is an onboard computer that monitors the surrounding airspace by interrogating the transponders of nearby aircraft. When TCAS detects a potential collision, it calculates the safest avoidance maneuver and issues what is called a resolution advisory, a specific instruction to climb or descend. Critically, TCAS on both aircraft communicates with each other directly. They are coordinated. If one aircraft is told to climb, the other is told to descend. The 2 instructions are always opposite. The system assumes both crews will comply immediately. In 2002, TCAS had been standard on Western commercial aircraft for over a decade. The rule in most countries and in international aviation standards was clear. When TCAS issues a resolution advisory, follow it, even if ATC has told you to do something different. TCAS sees all nearby traffic. ATC at that moment may not.
The Bashkirian Airlines Tu-154M had TCAS installed, but the crew had been trained using the Russian Flight Operations Manual, a document that described TCAS as an additional aid to the ATC system. Another section of the same manual, on a different page, explicitly forbade maneuvers contrary to TCAS. The 2 sections contradicted each other. In practice, Russian crews had been trained to treat ATC instructions as primary. This ambiguity in a document on 2 different pages would determine what happened next.
At 2134:42 UTC, Nielsen contacted Bashkirian 2937 and instructed the crew to descend to flight level 350 to avoid crossing traffic. The crew acknowledged and began to descend. 13 seconds later, at 2134:55, TCAS on both aircraft issued coordinated resolution advisories. DHL 611 was told to descend. Bashkirian 2937 was told to climb. Had both crews followed these instructions, the aircraft would have moved away from each other. The collision would not have happened.
The DHL crew immediately followed their TCAS advisory and began descending. They could not inform Nielsen immediately. He was still speaking to the Bashkirian crew. The Bashkirian crew did not follow their TCAS advisory. They continued descending as Nielsen had instructed them. Their training, their instinct, and their operational manual had told them that when ATC and TCAS disagree, follow ATC. Nielsen, unaware that TCAS had issued advisories to both aircraft, repeated his instruction to Bashkirian 2937 to descend and gave them incorrect information about the DHL aircraft's position, telling them it was at their 2 o'clock position. It was actually at their 10 o'clock.
Descend flight level 350. Expedite. Climb. Climb. Descend. Descend. Both aircraft were now descending. They were closing on each other at a combined rate of hundreds of feet per second. At 21:35:19 UTC, 13 seconds before the collision, the Bashkirian crew reported to Nielsen that they were descending. The co-pilot, recognizing the TCAS advisory, asked the captain twice to climb. The captain did not respond. At 21:35:24 UTC, 8 seconds before the collision, the Bashkirian crew saw DHL 611 visually, approaching from the left, not the right as Nielsen had told them. The co-pilot pushed the control column forward, attempting to descend faster. 2 seconds before impact, the captain finally attempted to climb. It was too late. At 21:35:32 UTC, the Boeing 757's vertical stabilizer sliced completely through the Tupolov's fuselage just ahead of the wings. The Tupolev broke apart immediately. The DHL Boeing, its vertical stabilizer almost entirely gone, managed to fly 7 more kilometers before crashing into a forest near Kaisersdorf. All 71 people aboard both aircraft were killed. 71 people died. Among them were 52 children from Ufa who had been going to Spain on a school trip. Peter Nielsen, the controller on duty, survived. He received psychiatric treatment for traumatic stress in the months that followed. His colleagues at Skyguide kept a white rose on his former workstation. On February 24, 2004, 20 months after the collision, Nielsen was stabbed to death at his home in Cloten, Switzerland, in front of his wife and children. His killer was Vitaly Kaloyev, a Russian architect who had lost his wife and 2 children in the crash. Kaloyev was convicted of manslaughter and sentenced to 8 years in prison. He served less than 4 years. Skyguide initially attributed the accident to the Russian crew's failure to follow TCAS. After the BFU investigation, Skyguide accepted full responsibility and formally asked the families of the victims for forgiveness. The German Federal Bureau of Aircraft Accidents Investigation, the BFU, published its final report on May 19, 2004. It identified 2 immediate causes. First, the Air Traffic Control Service had failed to notice the impending separation infringement in time. Nielsen was working alone, covering 2 positions, with a degraded radar system and without a functioning short-term conflict alert on his display. The systemic failures at Skyguide, understaffing, inadequate backup procedures, maintenance scheduled during peak traffic hours, had created the conditions for the error. Second, the Bashkirian crew did not follow the TCAS resolution advisory. The BFU found that their flight operations manual contained contradictory guidance, describing TCAS as an additional aid, while also forbidding maneuvers contrary to it. The crew had been trained in practice to prioritize ATC. The BFU specifically recommended that the ambiguity in TCAS procedures should be resolved globally, that TCAS resolution advisories must always take precedence over ATC instructions, without exception, without qualification. Überlingen changed the way the global aviation industry thinks about the relationship between human authority and automated systems. Within 2 years of the collision, ICAO, the International Civil Aviation Organization, issued updated standards requiring all airline operations manuals to state clearly and without ambiguity that TCAS resolution advisories take precedence over ATC instructions. The contradictory language in the Bashkirian manual was identified as a contributing cause, and equivalent ambiguities in other operators' documentation were reviewed and corrected worldwide.
Air traffic control staffing standards were reviewed across Europe. The practice of allowing a single controller to cover multiple positions simultaneously, which had left Nielsen working alone with degraded systems during a busy period, was formally identified as a systemic risk and addressed in updated ATC procedures.
The short-term conflict alert system, which had been flashing at Karlsruhe while Nielsen's display remained dark, led to requirements for better integration and redundancy in conflict alert systems across European airspace. And the fundamental question that Überlingen posed, when a machine and a human authority give contradictory instructions, which one should the pilot follow, was answered clearly and permanently. Follow the machine. TCAS sees all aircraft in the surrounding airspace. ATC, at any given moment, may not. That answer is now part of every airline operations manual in the world.
There is a version of events on July 1st, 2002, where everyone survives. It requires only that the Bashkirian crew do what their TCAS told them to do. But the Bashkirian crew had been trained in good faith on a document that told them ATC came first. They made the decision they had been prepared to make. They followed a human voice over a machine advisory, as they had been taught. The machine was right. The human was wrong. And the document that created the ambiguity between them had never been corrected. Peter Nielsen was not a careless controller. He was one controller doing two jobs with degraded equipment, without the warnings he should have received, managing a situation that had already gone beyond what any single person could control. 71 people died because of what was written on 2 different pages of a flight manual, because a backup system was being serviced on the wrong night, because 11 phone calls went unanswered. None of it was inevitable. If you want to understand how aviation writes and rewrites those rules, one investigation at a time, subscribe. We'll be back next week.